Why would God command the sacrifice of a perfect cow? One thing no one could escape: ashes sprinkled on people. One red cow still remains, the mystery that never disappeared. Not a king, not a prophet, just a cow. Yes, an animal mentioned thousands of years ago in the Torah and the Qur'an. We are talking about the perfect red cow, a cow so rare that some believe it appears only once in centuries. But the ancient tradition says something even stranger. One more red cow will appear. When it does, many believe it will happen in the time of the Messiah. So the question is, why are some people still waiting? And where is this cow now? If you're someone who questions religion instead of blindly following it, subscribe. This channel is for thinkers who want to understand the deeper meaning behind all religions. First, we need to understand what this cow is supposed to look like. In the Torah, the description is given in very precise detail. God commands the Israelites to bring a red cow without defect, a cow that must be completely red. No black hair, no white hair, no physical blemish. And there is another important condition. This cow must never have carried a yoke. In other words, it must never have worked in the field. It must be an animal that has never been used by humans. But the story of a cow does not appear only in the Torah. In the Qur'an, an entire chapter even carries its name, Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow. And in that story, the Qur'an describes a bright yellow cow, a cow so striking that it is pleasing to those who see it. So now we have two sacred texts, both mentioning a mysterious cow. But this raises a strange question. Why would God command the sacrifice of a perfect red cow? The command appears in the Torah, in the book of Numbers. At that time, the Israelites with Prophet Moses had already left Egypt. More than 600,000 men were traveling through the desert. And when you include women and children, many historians estimate the total could have been around 2 million people. Imagine that. A massive camp of tents stretching across the desert. And in a place like that, with millions of people living together, there was one thing no one could escape: death. People could die from many things. Disease spreading through the camp, accidents during travel through the harsh desert, old age, or even battles with other tribes along the journey. Sometimes the Torah even describes moments when many people died at once, during divine punishments. So death was unavoidable. But according to the law given to the Israelites, anyone who touched a dead body became ritually impure. Even entering a place where someone had died made a person unclean. Once someone became impure, they could no longer enter the sanctuary, the sacred place where people came to worship God. They had to stay away until they were purified again. And this is where the red cow appears. God commands that a perfect red cow be taken outside the camp. There, the animal would be completely burned. During the fire, the priest would throw cedar wood, hyssop, and a scarlet thread into the flames. The entire cow had to be reduced to ashes. Those ashes were then carefully collected and mixed with water. This mixture became a special water of purification. It was then sprinkled on people who had become ritually impure so they could be purified again. Only then could they return to the community and allowed to enter the sanctuary again. But here is what made this command so mysterious. Most laws in the Torah explain why they exist. They tell people the reason behind the rule. But this one does not. The Torah gives the command. but never explains why this ritual works. It became known as one of the greatest mysteries of the law, a command from God, whose deeper meaning remained hidden. And perhaps that is why the story of this cow has never disappeared, because even today, thousands of years later, people are still searching for it. Here is what makes this story unbelievable. A cow that should barely exist was found multiple times. The story did not end there. As centuries passed, the ritual appeared again. Throughout history, priests had to search for the same rare animal. But here is where the story becomes even more mysterious. According to Jewish tradition, this ritual did not happen many times. Across thousands of years, only 9 red cows were ever prepared. The first was during the time of Prophet Moses in the desert. Centuries later, when the Jews returned from exile in Babylon and rebuilt the temple, 1 red cow was prepared by Ezra. Then during the time of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, 7 more red cows were prepared. That temple period ended in the year 70 CE, when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. And after that, the ritual stopped. But this raises a haunting question. If the ritual happened 9 times in history, what about the next one? Because according to that same Jewish tradition, 1 red cow still remains, the final one, the 10th red cow. And some believe that when it finally appears, it will happen in the time of the Messiah. This is where the story suddenly moves from ancient history to the modern world, because today some religious groups are actively searching for this cow. In recent years, several red calves were even brought to Israel from farms in the United States. Experts began examining them carefully, checking their hair, their color, their age, looking for the perfect red cow described in the Torah. Some believe that if such a cow is finally found, the ancient ritual could begin again. And if that ritual begins again, it could lead to something even bigger. The rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. What makes this story truly shocking is the idea that an ancient ritual could suddenly return to the modern world. A ritual described thousands of years ago. A ritual involving the sacrifice and burning of a cow in order to create ashes used for purification. A practice that belongs to a completely different time, a different mindset. And yet, some believe that if the 10th red cow appears, this ritual could begin again. This cow could mark the beginning of a new religious era. But the Qur'an approaches the story of the cow in a very different way. In Surah Al-Baqarah, the Qur'an tells the story of the Israelites being asked to sacrifice a cow. But instead of simply obeying, they kept asking more and more questions. What color should it be? How old should it be? What kind of cow exactly? Until a simple command became complicated, the message of the Qur'an is clear. The lesson was never about the cow itself. It was about obedience, faith, and trust in God. So while some people today are searching for the perfect red cow, the Qur'an reminds believers of something deeper. Faith was never meant to depend on a single animal, but on the connection between human beings and God. And maybe that is the real mystery behind this story. In the next video, we are going to explore something even more mysterious: the hidden history of the temple in Jerusalem. What stood there before? What stands there now? And why many believe the future of this place could shape the future of religion itself. Because once you understand the story of the temple, the mystery of the red cow suddenly becomes much bigger than anyone imagined.